8:34, Pix 11 is your local election headquarters, everybody. The Democratic primary for New York City mayor now fewer than 2 months away, and we are continuing round two of our conversation with the candidates to see where they stand on so many issues affecting you. Today, businessman Ray McGuire joining me live on his plans to help businesses, students, and the city come back from the pandemic. Mr. McGuire, thank you for being here once again.
Thank you for having me. How are you today?
Doing well, sir. Thank you very much. And I want to get right into one of the most pressing issues facing us right now, sir, and that is crime. Gun violence. We're seeing surge again. 6 people shot in 4 separate incidents just this past weekend as the numbers tick up. So first and foremost, what is your plan to address specifically gun violence?
You know, the covenant that we have for New Yorkers is to keep ourselves safe, to keep New Yorkers safe. The gun violence that we're now experiencing, we need to address, and we need to address immediately. I have a safety and justice plan that your viewers can see on rayformayor.com, and it is to get the guns off the street, to make sure that we have the resources, make sure that we invest in the community organizations like the Violence Interrupters, that cure violence, so we can go in and prevent. First of all, is prevent. Second, given where we are, we need to get the guns off the street and use whatever resources that are available to us to get those guns off the street.
You know, there's been a lot of talk about defunding the police. Would you see this as an issue of putting more police on the streets to get those guns off the street?
Listen, I think we need better policing. You know, I want the police to protect me and not profile me, but we do need to do commit whatever resources that we have available to get the guns off the street. It is imperative. We need to target where we think the guns are. We need to attack the I-95 pipeline. So I'll work with local DAs as well as the state and federal DAs from where the guns are manufactured to how they get into the precincts where we're seeing most of the violence occur. We need to get the guns off the street, but we also need to make sure that we address why the violence is occurring, which is we need to prevent the violence. We need to invest in our communities.
You know, another crime surge, sir, that we're seeing is the violence against Asian Americans as well, right? There were 2 more attacks over the weekend. You're taking part in this Pix 11 forum tonight, the Mayoral Forum, with the Asian American community. There are certainly going to be questions about how you plan to address these attacks, specifically within the anti-Asian community and the sentiment that is being felt now within that community.
You know, as the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So whether it be anti-Black, anti-Asian, anti-Semitic, we need to stand and denounce it in whatever form and in whatever platform we can. I will stand with the Asian community tonight, as I have for the history of my being in New York City, which is 4 decades or so, with long and deep relationship with the community. We have to denounce it. And so we need to invest in the anti-hate crimes unit. We need to make sure that there are safe places for those people who are suffering from the violence. We need to make sure that we have language capabilities. But the thing that we need to do, and what the leadership needs to do, is to stand up and say that we denounce any kind of this hatred, any kind. And we need to do whatever we can to bring the resources to make sure we prosecute those.
Briefly, I want to move on to other topics, but I just want to ask you one question. It sounds like in both topics of gun and the anti-Asian sentiment that you do want to put more into the NYPD. Is that what I'm hearing?
I want to make certain, I want better policing. I want to make sure we got the resources dedicated to address the gun violence and have the resources available to address the anti-Asian hate crimes, as well as the anti-Semitic hate crimes that we're experiencing.
I want to move on because New York has also suffered on almost all fronts because of what we're seeing here in this pandemic, right? We're coming out of it. You have a comeback plan. I want to specifically zero in on businesses, right? Because we're seeing for rent signs all across the city. You're a former Citigroup executive. How do you think that background will help revitalize the city?
You know, if there's anyone who has a background who understands how to manage out of crisis, I do. I managed out of the great financial recession that we had, where I had to build and lead teams and manage budgets, and we had to do more with less. And in certain cases, we had to do everything with nothing. My comeback plan is to address the stated 13+% unemployment rate in many of our boroughs is 20+%. We need to get New Yorkers back to work. And my plan is the greatest, most inclusive economic comeback plan in the history of this city. 500,000 jobs.
Yeah.
Mostly focused, 50,000 of those are focused on the small businesses, which are the lifeblood of this community.
Yeah.
Giving them the resources and support that's necessary for them to survive.
And part of that is getting people vaccinated. You came out with this plan last week to get 1 million New Yorkers vaccinated by giving them a $100 voucher. Sounds great on paper. Where are you getting the money?
as I've gone through and looked at the budget, we certainly have the resources, the tremendous amount of dollars that are coming from the federal government. And I think the leadership here, Chuck Schumer and Congressman Greg Meeks, have done an extraordinary job. Depends on how well we use that, which is, again, where my experience and judgment comes in. We need to dedicate those resources to making certain New Yorkers are vaccinated. We got to get over COVID first. We got to get over COVID, then we got to get the economy going. No economic justice, no social justice. So my plan is specifically designed to pay for the incentives necessary to keep our small businesses going, to pay for what's necessary to get incentivize those who decided to be reluctant about taking the vaccine to take the vaccine. So whatever we can do to get our people back into the economy, that's necessary. Make it an inclusive comeback. That's what my plan is designed to do.
An evil playing field on all levels. That also trickles down to schools. There's a lot of talk right now about getting rid of gifted and talented programs, right, because of racial disparities. What is your plan then for that?
Education is my ticket out. Our children's lives should not be determined by their zip codes. I want to expand. I'm a little disturbed at the racial disparities that exist in gifted and talented. I want to get a group of professionals here to give me an assessment, but I want to expand gifted and talented so that it's available to all New Yorkers and make sure that we have the highest quality education in our district schools, in our magnet schools, in our parochial schools, and in our charter schools.
And lastly, sir,
best quality education.
I want to speak about the competition in the mayoral field right now. Okay, there's a poll this week by a pro-charter school group, had two candidates clearly in the lead, Andrew Yang and Eric Adams. I do want to see, there are the numbers on your screen right there. How do you hope to overcome those numbers and put yourself at the top of the list?
The one candidate that you didn't have highlighted there is a candidate whom I'm targeting. That's a candidate called undecided. And so as we get out and talk to New Yorkers and the subways and the bodegas, in the streets, in the civic associations, and walking around the business and the BIDs and talking to the chambers of commerce, my message gets out. I don't owe anybody any favors. So I come to this, I'm an outsider. They had their chance, and I haven't run for any office and lost. So they had their chance. New Yorkers are looking for something new. They want something different. They want a leader in whom they can trust and whom they can believe, who's got a track record.
One candidate.
They say, I have receipts. So New Yorkers are looking for somebody who's got receipts, which I do.
And very lastly here, one candidate is facing some trouble right now. That is Scott Stringer with these allegations of sexual misconduct. Would you go as far as to say that he should drop out of the race because of the allegations?
Listen, what I've said is that I stand with the women, as I have stood with the women for my entire life. They made me who I am. But we need to see this play out. As a black man, due process is something that we have to respect and adhere to. I want to see it play out, but I do stand with the women.
Understood. And in the interest of fairness, we are simply out of time, giving everybody equal time. Ray McGuire, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.